Hello and welcome back to our Funny Faces sessions on Celtic designs. I think our first video we talked about Celtic arm and face painting, and I'll just refresh your memory because we looked at some traditional Celtic designs, and often in our landscape here in Cornwall we see Celtic designs in churches, in buildings, in crosses, and it shows the intricate weaving pattern on Celtic designs. Some of the patterns can start off really simply. Here we have a Trinity knot, which is probably the simplest form of Celtic knot, and we see 3 points woven together. Another simple design is the triskel, and these designs to the Celtic peoples represented many spiritual and earth connections. So the triskel and the triskelion was the past, the present and the future, and it joined the earth, the planet and the spiritual realms with the people on the earth. But some of the more intricate Celtic lattices and woven patterns become really complex, and those patterns were reflected in the garments they wore, so the weaving of the clothes, and also in their jewellery. We have some beautiful Celtic jewellery here in Cornwall that shows the patterns, and it's often depicted in silver. I'm trying not to catch the light so you can actually see the designs on these pendants, and sometimes in gold too. So we have the Celtic knots actually woven into the metal. Here's a more elaborate one. Now, we're not going to be doing metal work today, but we are going to be doing some Celtic weaving, and we're going to start just with some really simple designs that you can make yourself at home. So we're going to be making Celtic woven bracelets like this one. This one is 2 colours, yellow and red, really simple bead or button to connect it. And I know you're thinking that looks really complicated, but I'm going to show you how to weave it, and it's not as complicated as it looks. Here's and you can do them in different sizes, so depending on your wrist. That's a pink and very earth natural canvas colour with the interwoven, and that one's got a button so they can fit it on. And here's a darker one, a grey and blue. And actually you could make them in your favourite colours, you can make them in your football team or rugby team's colours, so you can choose your own colours, and it's a really simple design. The only things that you're going to need are the thread which you make the bracelet with, and you can use really cheap from craft shops a hemp or a cotton thread. You can get about 5 reels of these in some of the craft shops locally for about £2 or £3, so really cheap. But even better, you can do a bit of recycling and upcycling, and if you've got wool at home, you can make these bracelets with wool. Really simple techniques. I'm going to be showing you in a little while how to do it with the wool. To fasten the bracelets, remember I said we'll just use a simple loop and fastening mechanism, so you're going to need either a button, an old button. The larger the holes the better, so I've got a couple of coloured buttons, or if you've got some beads, an old necklace, as long as it's got a hole in, these are really useful for joining the end of the bracelet together. They're suitable for girls and for boys. You can make them for presents for people, for Christmas presents. And what a really cool way to recycle and upcycle and make sustainable presents. Okay, so the first thing you'll need is your thread. And so I'm going to use wool, and I'm going to use a dark shade and a light shade so that when I show you the weaving, you should be able to follow it really closely. And the first thing you do is measure it and cut it to the right length. Now, if you haven't got a measure, don't worry. You're going to need 3 arm's lengths of each colour. And when I say arm's length, I mean you take the end of the wool and you measure it to your shoulder, that's 1 arm's length. So, and again is 2, and again is 3. And then we're going to cut the wool when we've got 3 arms lengths. So that's the dark colour. Then we're going to take the lighter colour. You choose whatever colours you like. 3 arms lengths. So 1, 2, and 3. And cut the wool there. Fabulous. So now we take 2 of the ends, and we're going to take about the length from your fingertips to your elbow. And then, so that makes 2 short ends and 2 long ends. And we're going to make a little knot so that we have a tiny loop at the end. And that is what's going to go around your button or your bead. So however big you make that loop, it has to be near enough the right size, and I'm going to use probably a bead for the blacken. I'm going to put my glasses on now so I can see how to do this, because I need my glasses for some things. And just make a tiny knot and a loop. And so that is secure, and it means that you now have 2 short ends and 2 very long ends, and that's how we're going to do the weaving. The other thing you're going to need for your weaving, which is a very useful piece of equipment, is a pencil, any type of pencil or pen, because you need to secure the loops while you're weaving. And then you're going to need something to hold that in place while you pull the wool to weave. Anything will do. A bulldog clip, you can put it in the end of a drawer and push the drawer to hold it in place. I've got a clipboard here that's really useful, because what I do is I push the pencil through the clipboard, and that holds the pencil in place. And then we're ready to do the weaving. But what we need to do now is to change the camera angle so that you can get a close-up of the weaving, so you can see how I move the threads. So we're just going to stop the video there, pause it for a minute, and come back in a second. Okay, so now, as you can see, I've set up a white cloth underneath the weaving, and you can see I've got my pencil and my clipboard, and I've got my threads. So the 2 short threads are in the middle, and the 2 longer threads are at either side. And this is how we start our weaving. We're going to take one of the longer threads. I'm going to take the lighter coloured pink thread, and I'm going to cross it over the 2 short threads. So I've made a loop, and it comes across the 2 short threads. Then I'm going to take the end of that long thread, pass it under the 2 short threads and through that loop I've just made, and it's going to pull. When you pull that, it's going to pull into a little knot, but I don't want you to pull it too tight, so we're going to slide that little knot up to the top. I'll show you that again. We have to do 2, so we're going to take again the lighter coloured pink thread, the long thread. We're going to pass it over the 2 short threads, take the end of that same long thread, pass it under the 2 short threads and through the loop that you've just made, and pull it very gently and slide it to the end. So you can see we've done 2 pink knots, 2 knots of the lighter colour. So I'm going to leave that long pink thread there, keep the 2 short threads in the middle, and now we're going to do weaving with the darker thread, the long dark thread. Same technique, we're going to pass that long thread over the 2 short threads, Then we'll take the end of the long thread under the 2 short threads and through that loop and pull it so you get all the wool or thread, whatever you're using, and pull the knot gently to meet the 2 pink knots. And just gently ease them together, not too tight. The second time we do it, again with the dark thread, same technique, over the 2 short threads, take the end and pass it under the 2 short threads and through the loop and pull the knot gently. Oops, I've caught that pink thread, so just pull it down gently to meet the 2 pink knots. Brilliant. Now we leave that darker black thread there and we go back to the pink and we repeat 2 more pink knots. So we make a loop passing over the 2 short threads, take the end of that, pass it under the 2 short threads and through the loop, pull the cord gently, and then the pink knot will slide up to meet the black knots. But we have to do a second one. Same technique, try not to get bored. It does get easier the more you practice. So you put it over the 2 short threads and then the end comes underneath and through the loop. And once you've got this technique of doing 2 with the paler colour and then 2 with the darker colour, you just repeat that. There's the 2 pink, so you leave the pink thread there and go back to the black one now, and we're going to do 2 knots with the black. Over the 2 short threads, take the end of the black underneath the 2 short threads and through the loop and pull until it becomes tighter. And you'll begin to see, it's not immediately obvious when you start, but as you progress you'll see the pattern starting to build up. So let's do that second black knot over the 2 shorter ones. It helps if you sort of try and keep them taut. Then you take the end of the long black thread underneath the 2 short ones and pull the loop and slide the knot up to meet that first black one. Just gently ease them together, don't pull too tight or you'll lose the beautiful pattern. And can you see how we're starting to build up a pattern here? It's going to take you probably about 20 minutes or so to make a bracelet that's long enough to go around, because you keep measuring it against your wrist, because you'll know when you have enough to actually meet. So I'm going to show you one that we've nearly finished. Let's move that bracelet over there, and I can show you one that I started earlier today. And now can you see how we've built up that pattern of the black knots and the pink knots? 2 knots for pink and 2 knots for black all the way along. And then you'll reach a stage where they'll just meet and you should have enough to make the whole bracelet. Shall we do one more knot just to practice that knot again? So we take the long threads to either side and the short threads in the middle. So they're my 2 short threads. We'll do the same side. So we have the pink to that side and the long black thread to that side. You always need to make sure you get your threads in the right place to start, or it gets very confusing. So, pink over the 2 short threads, through the loop, and pull gently. One more pink over the 2 short threads, through the loop, and pull gently. And I think that's probably long enough now to finish the end off. And the finishing off is really easy. So we're going to tie those 4 threads together in 1 knot to finish the end of the bracelet. So make sure you get all the 4 threads through the knot and pull, and just ease the knot to make sure it's in position. And that last knot does need to be quite tight because that's going to hold that end of the bracelet. And then we get our finishing button or bead, and we're going to try and pass. I might need to cut some of these threads, so they are still quite long and uneven, so I'm going to cut those there. And let's see if we can pass all 4 threads. This is the tricky bit, to try and get all the threads through. If we can't do all of them together, we can do 2. And the hole in that bead isn't quite big enough to fit all the 4 through, so we're going to fit 2. Let's see if we can squeeze. Sometimes to get them through, twisting the bead is a good idea. So it's like you're turning, and you should just start to see threads poking through and pull them through. So we've got a bead there, and then we're just going to tie the threads underneath the bead. Probably 2 or 3 knots to make sure it's really secure, because we don't want that bead coming off, because that's going to secure your bracelet to your arm. 2, let's do 1 more, 3, and then you can cut. And there's your finished bracelet. So you have your own Celtic woven bracelet, the colours of your choosing. Really simple but really effective design, and looks beautiful on your wrist as a present. And to fasten it, you just push the bead through the loop. And that will hold it secure on your wrist. There you go, Celtic bracelets. Hope you enjoyed that, and hope you have loads of fun making them.